South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott said last month that President Trump's moral authority was compromised because of his response to the violence in Charlottesville, Virginia. Scott is the only Republican who is black in the Senate. The president invited him to the White House on Wednesday. The White House released this photo. Scott spoke to our Nancy Cordes after the meeting in his only television interview.
Senator, how was the meeting? Tell me how it came about.
I thought it went really well. After my comments the week preceding, after the Charlottesville White House called and said, you gave us a pretty strong critique. What do we do? And we said, let's get together. We had a good initial conversation. And my goal is to focus on the path forward. How do we help those people who are most vulnerable? And so many of those folks are disproportionately minorities, but we want to help everyone who is economically vulnerable. I thought it was a very strong initial meeting. I was very pleased that the vice president as well as the president was in attendance. I thought that spoke very well of the White House and the administration.
Did you feel like you changed the president's mindset, or that his mindset has already changed somehow in the wake of what happened?
The president was very receptive to listening. That is a key to understanding, is listening first. I went in there not expecting to change the president's mind. I was surprised at how receptive he really was to the subject, and pleased that we spent more than 30 minutes on a topic that's really close, near and dear to my heart, but that's very important to the country. It's not simply the racial component, it's the concept that America is a nation driven and focused on creating opportunities for all with no exclusions.
So he did more listening than talking?
He did a lot of listening. He had a lot of thoughts, a lot of comments, a lot of questions about what has been, what should be, and we were able to answer some of those questions. And frankly, what he said is this can't be a single meeting. This has to be a series of conversations into the future. What
did you feel that he most wanted to understand from you?
Well, I think he wanted to have an appreciation for my perspective and the perspective of other folks who have been perhaps victimized by discrimination. I think as well he wanted to understand and appreciate what are real solutions that could impact the entire country.
Did you get the sense that he felt bad about what he had said?
He's obviously reflected on what he has said, on his intentions and the perception of those comments. I'll let him discuss how he feels about it, but he was certainly very clear that the perception that he received on his comments was not exactly what he intended with those comments.
You talked at the outset about the fact that the White House said that you had been pretty critical. You said that he had compromised his moral authority.
Yes.
Why did you feel that way?
Well, if you watched the comments on Tuesday, you saw that it erased the comments on Monday, and Saturday was a little slow in coming. I thought it was important to say those words, not because it's what I felt, it's what we had seen around the nation. The response to Charlottesville and to the president's comments were very clear, and they were very strong, quite decisive, and not in his favor. I wanted to make sure that as a leader of this nation and as a United States Senator representing the great state of South Carolina, that I was clear with my critique as well.
What can he do to regain that moral authority? Can he regain it?
The people will decide. Ultimately, I think he's working diligently on some solutions that will be helpful. I think to the extent that we focus on what creates success in America, and are those key components available for all Americans, no matter where you live, the more we get to a yes on that question in the poorest zip codes, the better the outcome will be of this presidency and, frankly, the legacy and the brand of President Donald Trump.
Do you think that you'll be meeting again? Did you get the sense that this is going to be an ongoing conversation?
He said we need to have several more meetings. So that was hopeful and optimistic.
Do you think the president truly does sympathize with white supremacists, or do you think that this has more to do with him trying to appeal to people who he thinks are in his base?
Well, I think the president will have to answer that question. I will say that I saw no indications of any sympathy towards white nationalists or supremacists.
When you spoke to him?
At all.
More broadly, what have you learned, what has the party learned about working with Donald Trump?
Well, listen, our president is a president who wants to negotiate. He is a deal maker. The fact is that he's looking for ways to move the American economy forward, putting America first, and he's looking for allies in that quest. To the extent that he finds them, I think he celebrates them, and when he doesn't, he counterpunches.
Are Republicans feeling a little nervous after the president cut that deal with Democrats last week? Are they worried that they aren't necessarily on the same page with the president, even when they think they are?
Well, there's no question that that deal was a surprise deal that he cut with the Democrats. I think what they understand is that the hurricane disaster funding needed to have a simple one face on that legislation, and it was the Americans' face. It was America's face. It was a piece of legislation that we all should be on board, and he felt like to unify the country, my assumption, he felt like to unify the country that it would be important for us to get that deal done.